What does the media truly think about your favorite NFL team? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL reaction video. And in this video, I react to the consensus NFL power rankings across numerous NFL websites and platforms. That's right. These are the consensus NFL power rankings. This is exactly what the media believes about your favorite NFL team. And of course, I will play the judge on whether or not they are accurate or these rankings are absolute garbage. So if that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL reactions just like this. It's time to find out whether or not the media will shine on the bottom line. Let's pull up the consensus power rankings. Here it is, the 2024 NFL preseason consensus analyst rankings. That's right. We have the high and the low ranking. Through all of these media platforms, we have the volatility ranking, meaning how volatile a team is. So how high or low they will move up and down the rankings depending on the different platform that's ranking the team. And as you can see, I mean, we have everyone on here, like NFL.com, Pro Football Focus, USA Today, CBS Sports, NBC. We've got Fantasy Pros. We've got Yahoo Sports. We've got Bleacher Report. We've got Warren Sharp. We've got everybody on here, bro. So ESPN, I don't know if I mentioned that. Everyone is ranking. Okay, so we've got everyone. So this is truly what people think about your team. So let's discuss it. From the bottom to the top, spike the like. At number 32, the Carolina Panthers. And I'm going to say this. After watching week 1 of the preseason, I'm not convinced that the Carolina Panthers are not the worst team in the NFL. I'm not convinced that the Carolina Panthers are still not doggy doo-doo. That's what I'm trying to say. They are bad. They are a bad football team. They could not get a darn first down in a preseason game. And I understand they had third stringers playing, but it's embarrassing to watch. They were playing the 31st team in the NFL, the New England Patriots. They could not get a darn first down. It was unwatchable. So Carolina could be the worst team. But that being said, their high on this list is 29. And I believe they're closer to 29 than 32. I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the league. I think there are improvements at wide receiver. There are improvements on the offensive line, having a solid defensive coordinator, having a better offensive coordinator, having Bryce Young in year 2. I think all those things are positive reasons to understand and believe that the Panthers will be a better team this year and that the Panthers won't be a complete disaster this year. I at least believe that that will be the case. I think the Giants, the Commanders, the Broncos, those teams to me are going to be worse, potentially, than Carolina. If I had to say, I would say Carolina's the 3rd worst team in the NFC. They're probably still going to finish last in their division, but because their division is pretty weak relatively, I would not rule it out that they finished 3rd or they finished 2nd. Would I be surprised if they finished 1st? Absolutely. But would it be outrageous for this team to finish 2nd in their division, 3rd in their division? Honestly, no. They don't have that bad of a roster, especially offensively. It really comes down to Bryce Young and his growth in year 2 and whether or not the defense can stabilize. Because the defense, they've been solid, but they lost Brian Burns. Is J.C. Horn going to be healthy? I like the safeties, Woods and Fuller. But some of the corners are a little suspect. Pass rush is a little suspect post Brian Burns, right? Jadeveon Clowney's going to be your top edge rusher, and he doesn't have Mike McDonald scheming him up. Derek Brown's not a sack guy, right? They're going to be a good run defense. They got Ashawn Robinson. So linebackers aren't terrible either. Josie Jewell was added to the mix. But I really believe that the O-line improvements, the coaching improvements, that makes me believe they're not going to be the worst team. So I personally would lean closer to their high ranking than their low ranking, which was Warren Sharp, Bleacher Report, and somebody WF. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry. I don't know who that is. But those three platforms rank the Panthers at number 32. At number 31, the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots are ranked number 31. And the Patriots' low ranking was number 32 by Bleacher Report. Was not me on Bleacher Report, though. Somebody else. I'm going to have to talk to the people at the Bleacher Report and get them out of there. All right? I'm just kidding. But seriously, though. What are you doing? Why do you got the Patriots at number 32? PFF at number 28 is their high ranking. Interesting that PFF has them the highest of anybody. That's kind of interesting to me. But the Patriots are at number 31. And again, could they be the second worst team in the league? It's possible. Do I believe they'll be the second worst team in the league? I personally think they're better than the Giants, the Commanders, the Panthers, and the Broncos. I personally do believe that. I think the Broncos, they're pretty interesting in the AFC, like in terms of who's the worst AFC team. Who else could really enter that discussion? I mean, if Will Levis is a disaster, maybe Tennessee. If Richardson's constantly injured, maybe the Colts. If Herbert gets hurt, the Chargers. Or the Raiders, potentially, if it's a really bad offensive operation. But personally, I think it's between the Patriots and Broncos to be the worst team in the conference. And I think it comes down to which quarterback play is more consistent. Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, or Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham. And which defense comes to play. And to me, the Patriots have more talented quarterbacks, and I think they have a better defense. So I would personally rank the Patriots above the Broncos. But I understand having Sean Payton's a better coach. They do have maybe a better offensive line, although I do think the Patriots O-line will be better than last year. I will say that. I don't think it's going to be absolutely terrible. So at number 31, the Patriots. I just wonder, when's Drake May going to get in there? Is he going to get in there at all this year? Jacoby Brissett, right? Is he going to start? Is Drake May going to start? How's that all going to work? Broncos are asking similar questions. The Broncos are at 30. Their high rank, interesting enough, is 22, which is drastic compared to 32. That's a pretty decent volatility ranking right there. They're 10 spots higher on NBC Sports, which I'm not convinced that that's Michael Florio. I'm probably suggesting that's Mike Florio. And then you've got whatever that website is at number 32. So they are one of the three teams that is ranked at number 32 in the NFL. So the media believes that the Panthers, the Patriots, and the Broncos could all be the worst team in the league. But they do not think the Commanders or the Giants could be the worst team in the league, which is interesting. I think the Commanders and the Giants have a higher chance of being the worst team in the league than the Patriots or the Panthers. Maybe not the Broncos. So I look at Denver and I say, could they get to 22? What would be the case for them to get to 22? Strong offensive line play, good running game if Javonte Williams can bounce back, Cortland Sutton playing like a wide receiver one, Bo Nix having a pretty good rookie year because it's not going to come from Zach Wilson or Jarrett Stidham, Sean Payton managing this team to a bunch of close games, and the defense rising in their level of performance, especially up front with their pass rush and that rotation of young, youthful pass rushers. That would be, in my opinion, the case of them going 6-11, 7-10. I don't think they're going to reach 8-9 like they did last year. I think that was largely fluky. So at number 30, the Broncos, I do believe they belong in this range. It's just interesting that their ceiling is believed to be so much higher than the Patriots and the Panthers, which I disagree with. The Giants have a ceiling of 18 and a floor of 31. So a ceiling of 18 according to Fantasy Pros and a floor of 31 according to USA Today. Now, the Giants are 29th. I think the Giants should be landing on everyone's lists at least from 27 through 32. They should be a lot more like the Patriots and the Panthers, where they're in that bottom four. They're not escaping that bottom four. I'm not exactly sure what Fantasy Pros sees at 18 because Fantasy Pros is suggesting that they're in the hunt at number 18. Like they're close to making the playoffs. I don't know how you calculate that with the Giants. Like their O-line could be a little bit better. Jermaine Illuminor, who would have thought, not BLV, who's been saying he's the most underrated right tackle in the league for years, he could be an improvement over Evan Neal. That's not a shocker, right? The D-line could be phenomenal, but every other area of the roster has concerns. Tight end, wide receiver overall. Malik Neighbors could be a superstar. There is that. Running backs, maybe you could miss Saquon Barkley, although I feel like that's fairly replaceable production at running back. The secondary is pretty bad. It's a new defensive coordinator. The linebackers are not bad. So, the Giants, I kind of feel like people are sort of underrating them when they think they're going to get the first pick. But I also see the case because I feel like it's up to the vibes with Daniel Jones. Their season is going to be dictated by how it begins. Because with Daniel Jones, if he starts off rough and it just spirals out of control or he gets injured, like they're going to be in a really rough spot offensively and their quarterback position is in desperation because they're probably going to be starting like Drew Lock for the rest of the year. So they're going to be in a really tough spot with the whole Daniel Jones pressure. And I just don't think that the secondary is up for the task. The O-line is consistently up for the task, and the receiving core is going to be consistent enough. Now, could I see them maybe being a little bit better than people expect due to coaching, Brian Daboll, maybe Daniel Jones getting back to 2022 form as opposed to 2023, Malik Neighbors being a superstar, the next Odell Beckham Jr. in New York? It's all possible, but it's very unlikely. I do think that they're better and more talented than the Commanders, though. So I would have them above the Commanders. I think the Commanders are like arguably the worst team in the league. Now, the interesting thing here is that despite being ranked number 28, they have a lower volatility ranking than the Giants and the Broncos by a considerable amount, right? 2.6 compared to 1.6. The Commanders, 26 in terms of their high, which is a lot lower than 18 or 22, but their low is 31, which is also odd, right? So they must be ranked like at 28 or 27 very consistently, while the Giants are probably ranked like 29, 30, 31 a few times, but also ranked 18 on another one. So the Giants have kind of a couple outliers, while the Commanders are more about the same range. So that's interesting, which I would say that means the Commanders are probably a worse team overall. But I think the Commanders just, when you look at their roster and their team, I think Jaden Daniels is going to real rough time as a rookie. I don't think he's going to be great as a rookie. The O-line is extremely mediocre to like bad straight up. They've got a bunch of former backups playing as starters now. Their receiving core is a tad overrated. I like Terry McLaurin, but he's coming off like the worst, least productive season of his career. Jahan Dotson has yet to prove that he's a stud. And they don't have much in other places. Sanat, Ertz, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, none of them scream at me, and I'm not in love with any of them. Defensively, their pass rush, especially the edge rush, is suspect. The corners, the coverage is suspect. Their ability to play man in Dan Quinn's system, suspect. I like the linebackers. I like the defensive line and the interior, but I don't like the safeties outside of maybe Jeremy Chin, and I don't love the corners, especially. The corners are terrible. So the Commanders at 28, I feel like they're more like 30, 31, 32. I think they're more in the bottom three, along with Denver and probably Carolina. And I would maybe put New England at 29 or 28 and the Giants at 29 or 28. And that's probably how I see it. At number 27, we've got a significant gap in my mind, from number 28 to 27. The Tennessee Titans have a volatility of 2. And they are a high rank of 21 at CBS Sports and a low rank at NFL Network at 30. That seems odd to me, considering that the Titans have a lot of talent. The Titans are a lot more talented than the teams that are below them on this list. Will Levis is obviously a huge question mark, and this is probably what people think of Will Levis. So at number 27, what they're telling you with this ranking is they don't believe in their coaching and they don't believe in their quarterback. Because Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Okonkwo, Spears, I should say, Pollard, Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, you just signed Quandre Diggs, right? And Jamal Adams, but he's not very good. L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Roger McCreary. I'm going to go on and on and on. Like this team, Arden Key, better offensive line coach, better offensive coordinator, maybe a lesser head coach. That could certainly be argued pretty significantly. But the Titans have more potential by a long shot than all the teams below them. So I think they deserve to be higher than 27. And I think that's basically what they're telling you is they don't believe in Will Levis most importantly. So interesting. At number 26, the Cardinals. So their high rank is 22. Their low rank is 31 at PFF. That's interesting. So Pro Football Focus has them at 31. They had the Patriots above them by 3 spots. They had They had, everybody except for, I don't even know who's below them. Anyways, the Cardinals, I will say, volatile team. I could see that at 2.4. Kyler Murray is really talented. I really like the offense. I think they've got an underrated offensive coordinator. I think they've got an underrated offensive line. I think James Conner is underrated. I think Trey McBride's going to take off. Greg Dortch, I think, is going to have a big year, along with Marvin Harrison Jr. Michael Wilson is a favorite of many in the fantasy industry. I think they have a ton of talent on offense, and they will score points. But I think what PFF is indicating is that they don't have a defense. And because they're in such a difficult division with a inconsistent quarterback and a bit of an inconsistent O-line, a bit of an inconsistent, certainly inconsistent, pretty rough-looking defense, they'll probably be one of the worst teams just because of the division, the schedule, things like that. That's probably what they're leaning into here. USA Today believes in them at number 22, though, which is one of the higher rankings. That would be higher than I would rank them. I would rank them somewhere between 24 and 28. Somewhere in that range. Probably a little bit higher than 28, a little bit lower than 24. Probably within that range. So 26 feels right to me. At number 25, the Las Vegas Raiders have a high of 19 and a low of 28. And that feels very, very accurate. I feel like the Raiders just don't have quite good enough and proven enough quarterback and coaching, as well as they've got maybe a little bit of a suspect O-line shape, although I do believe in their potential. And I will say that it never really helps that there are rumors about Devontae Adams, being traded before the season even starts. That doesn't exactly help. But I think the Raiders have a decently high floor compared to the rest of this list because I think they have so much talent at skill positions, like Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Zamir White running the ball, the defensive line being so good, the defense in general being good, it kind of raises their floor. But their ceiling isn't very high because of the quarterback position. So at number 25, that does make sense to me. At number 24, I think the Saints are overrated by the media. I don't like their offensive line. I don't like Derek Carr at this point in his career. I think their receiving core is pretty thin overall. And I think their run game's really going to struggle. So I'm not a fan of their offense. I think their defense is pretty solid. I won't doubt that. But the coaching with Dennis Allen leading the way, he's arguably the consensus worst coach in the league. Like, arguably. I would love to see that ranking. But the Saints at 24, it just feels like people believe in Derek Carr and kind of like the image of the Saints and their consistency and being in a weak division more than these teams underneath them. 16 is their high by PFF, which I think is too high. And 27 is their low by CBS Sports, which might be a little bit too low. At number 24, the Saints, I would probably put them 25, 26, 27. Maybe a couple spots lower. The Vikings at 23 feels about right. Their high is 18 by the NFL Network. and their low is 29. I think 18 is probably too high considering their quarterback position and probable regression from the defense, just because they just were so good on defense last year for no apparent reason other than coaching and some outstanding individual performances from guys like Danielle Hunter, right? So 23 does feel accurate. I think the early schedule is very tough, which I think is going to set the tone for the rest of the year of being last place in their division. So honestly, I would expect the Vikings to be a top 5 or 6 pick in the draft. But because their coaching is so good with Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores, and they've got guys like Justin Jefferson, they've got leadership like Harrison Smith, I do think they upgraded certain areas of their defense. It's plausible that they could be the 23rd best team. It's just going to be difficult to overcome the rough start. At number 22, the Seahawks. I think they're very underrated by the media, and this is my favorite dark horse of this season in terms of teams that are being underrated and sleepers going into 2024. The Seahawks, 2.7 volatility. They have a high of 14 by Fantasy Pros, which I would rank them around that area. And 25 is their low. So it feels like, if I'm not mistaken, with a 2.7 volatility, that they're probably ranking closer to 25 than 14 a majority of the time, because it would make no sense that they're at 22. So they're probably being ranked 20, 21, 22, 23 a majority of the time as opposed to 14. But I'm more closer to Fantasy Pros. I love their defense. I think Mike McDonald's going to bring and install a toughness into this team and still install both of those words for this team. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Noah Fant, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, great plethora of weapons, even Jake Bobo, my guy. Geno's better than people think. And the offensive line adding Connor Williams is a massive addition in my opinion. I also believe that their offensive coordinator could have an upgrade there. I expect a breakout from Jackson Smith-Njigba, potentially Noah Fant, and even Kenneth Walker. I think there's a lot of these guys that are going to ascend. I think Devin Witherspoon's the best player on the team already. And I think Reek Woolen is going to thrive in that defense. I'm looking forward to the interior defensive line, and I think they did get better at linebackers. So the Seahawks at number 22, I think is way too low. At number 21, Tampa Bay, I think is a little disrespectful. Their high is number 9, which I think that's Mike Florio because I remember these power rankings. And at number 23 for Warren Sharp, which is interesting. Highly respect Warren Sharp, but I'm not exactly sure if it was Warren Sharp or one of his lackeys. But anyways, Tampa Bay at number 21. I think that's about right. I think it's a little too low considering the teams that are on top of them right there, the Colts and the Chargers. I'd have the Bucs ahead of the Colts and the Chargers, placing them around 18, 19, 17, around that range. But it is weird how their volatility exists from number 9 to 23. And because I think their volatility is 3.1, there's probably a couple platforms that have them in the 20s and a couple platforms that have them around 12, 11, 10, 9. So it's probably a wide discrepancy based on how they made the divisional round last year. And I think if you're basing it only off of the playoff win, the playoff performance against the Lions, I think you're overrating the team. But I think if you're basing it off of only the regular season and kind of how they played collectively throughout last year, I think you're underrating the team because I think they got better on the O-line. They got better at receiver. I'm a big fan of McMillan. I think Graham Barton's going to be good. And the defense, I think, is always pretty consistent under Todd Bowles. Baker in year 2 should be promising. So I think the Bucs are 17 to 19 range for me personally. So I'd move them up a little bit. The Colts and the Chargers, I think, are both overrated, especially considering the Chargers are ranked at number 10, according to Fantasy Pros, which is outrageous. USA Today ranking the Colts at number 14. I could see some people ranking the Colts very high because they might be fans of Anthony Richardson, which perfectly does make sense. PFF ranking them at 26, though, I think is telling because I think it shows okay, they've got inconsistent defensive coordinator, inconsistent quarterback, inconsistent secondary. I think their passing game overall is going to be a bit lackluster and a bit inconsistent because of the young quarterback and the unproven, experienced quarterback. So the Colts, I could see people putting them at 18, 19, 20, like they are on this list, but I definitely think the Bucs are better than them. So I would have Tampa above them. Seattle is certainly better than them. So I'd have both those teams well ahead of the Chargers and the Colts. The Chargers are one of the most overrated teams in the league. They have a 3.7 volatility. Some people are smart, like Yahoo Sports, ranking them 23. Because of Justin Herbert, their floor is relatively high, but their ceiling, I don't think, is very high this year. At number 18, the Steelers with a volatility surprisingly of 3.8. They have a high of 9 from, I guess it's Sporting News maybe, and a low of 23. Interesting. Those are two platforms I don't think we've seen yet, so that's kind of an interesting clash. But the Steelers at a very odd volatility. I would say that the Steelers usually are like a pretty consistent team. I mean, they're probably 10-7, 9-8, 8-9, 11-6, in that range. So for that, I don't think they're quite good enough to be number 9, despite, even if you're a huge Russell Wilson fan or a huge Justin Fields fan, regardless of which quarterback plays, you're probably still not ranking them at number 9. Their defense is really, really awesome. Mike Tomlin is a really good coach. You like the running backs. You like the O-line improvements. There's things to like here. But 9 is too high and 23 is too low. 23 would suggest they're a below average team and they have a losing record, which is also something that the Steelers just never have. At number 17, the Jags have a 3.1 volatility. I would have considered it to be a little bit more consistent with Jacksonville. I think they're a pretty mid team overall. I think they're around 9-8, 8-9. Not a lot of range. Maybe they could be 10-7. Maybe they could be 8-9, 7-10, right? But I don't see a huge discrepancy. PFF has them at 24, which is crazy. And CBS Sports has them at 12 in the playoffs. So PFF, I wonder why. Is it the O-line? Is it the... I don't know, man. Why would you rank them there? So Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, it's a pretty good quarterback coach combo. That definitely raises their floor. That's why I think 24 is too low, personally. And then the O-line did improve with Mitch Morse. The secondary's not bad. Ryan Nielsen's a good DC. They did improve their D-line with Eric Armstead. I don't know, man. I think the Jags are like 17. That's accurate to me. That is accurate. It equates to that, but having them a low of 24 and a high of 12, I guess they met in the middle, but that's really odd. At number 16, the Atlanta Falcons, a 3.3 volatility. 8 is their high rank, and 23 is their low rank from the Ringer. I think I'm closer to the Ringer than I am to number 8, just because I don't believe in their defense. I think Cousins coming off an Achilles is a scary thought. New offensive coaching, new defensive coaching, new coaching in general. There's a hurdle to get over there. Now, I will say the Falcons potentially have the most consistent, most balanced, best offense in their division, which could catapult them to a division win. And with Cousins at his best, they have the best quarterback in the division. But there are far more questions with the Falcons than a team like Tampa. I would rank the Falcons closer to 20 than at 16. At number 15, the Chicago Bears ranked a high of 13 and a low of 23. Kind of surprised. I'm surprised that the Bears were not ranked higher than 13 on any list and lower than 23, but also surprised that their volatility is relatively even. It's only 2.7, which isn't too high. So I'm a little bit surprised by that because I thought there would be some Caleb Williams truthers, some Caleb Williams lovers, some Caleb Williams boyfriends out there that also paint their nails that love the Bears. So I'm a little shocked by that. I mean, but at the same time, the Bears could be pretty legit. I could see them making the playoffs at their best. Like if Caleb comes through, which he certainly is extremely talented, can improve the O-line through his ability to buy time and create. They've got dynamic receivers all over the field, tight end, wide receiver. DeAndre Swift could be the running back that's perfect to fit with his receiving skill set. The O-line could improve with all the young guns they have, and the defense is very, very, very solid, led by Matt Eberflus. The Bears are a young football team. I think 15 is perfect. I think they're just outside the playoff race. They've got a lot of potential to make it there. It's just going to be a little inconsistent. I would maybe have the Steelers and the Jags ahead of the Bears, but I would have them within that 15 to 18 range for sure. At number 14, the Cleveland Browns have a 4.1 volatility, which makes a ton of sense. Cleveland, people don't believe in Deshaun Watson. That's obvious, but people believe in their roster, right? The Athletic has them at 6, and Fantasy Pros has them at 27. Now, Fantasy Pros having them at 27, I think is more outrageous than the Athletic having them at 6. The Athletic having them at 6 actually makes sense if Deshaun Watson plays half decent. Their O-line's awesome. Their D-line's awesome. Their roster is incredible. And their coaching is very good. Kevin Stefanski on offense, Jim Schwartz on defense. That gives them a high floor. Like we saw with Joe Flacco, they still won 11 games and made the playoffs. So the volatility makes sense, but 27? What, is their entire defense going to get injured? I don't know how that works out for them. At number 13, the Los Angeles Rams with a 2.4 volatility. So a lot of people just believe in Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and the consistency there. So NFL Network has them at a low of 17, which is the highest low that we've seen so far. And the Los Angeles Rams have a high of 9. So this is one of the more, middling teams in the league in terms of they could make the playoffs, but people don't see them as a true contender. And some people see them just missing the playoffs. I totally agree with that take. I don't think they're elite enough or talented enough, especially on defense, to be a team that is like 6, 5, 4 in NFL power rankings. But I think because of their offense and the explosiveness, the receivers, the O-line improvements, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, and even to a certain degree, if you're on the upper case with the Rams, the high case, you're probably saying, well, the young players on defense are going to help this team. And that's fair. But if you're saying, oh, the younger players are not going to live up to expectations, you could be on the lower end of 17. I could see them finishing second in their division. I could see them finishing third behind Seattle. I think there's a strange world where perhaps they finish first, but it's probably pretty uncommon. So 9 and 17, that range makes sense. 13's perfect. At number 12, the Jets. I actually have the Rams at 11, I think, on my latest power ranking, so I have them a little bit higher, but that's just me. At number 12, the New York Jets with a 4.4 volatility, which is the highest on the list. They have a high of 6 and a low of 25 by NBC Sports. So Mike Florio, we already kind of talked about that in that video. He's an Aaron Rodgers hater. He hates the guy, so he ranked him low on purpose. So I think if you take NBC Sports out, they're probably closer to 10 or in the top 10. I think that's pretty fair. But the volatility for the Jets also does make sense. If you don't believe in the coaching staff, if you think Aaron Rodgers is washed, if you think the O-line or haven't really checked what they've done on the O-line to improve it, if you think it's bad, if you think Mike Williams is going to be hurt all year, then sure, this could be a 6-win team. That's absolutely possible. But if Aaron Rodgers is decent, their defense lives up to expectations like they did last year, and Breece Hall's Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson's Garrett Wilson, they should probably be a top 15 team in the NFL without a doubt. So the Jets at 12, that's a fine ranking. I'd have them at 11 or 10, but it's fine. 12's fine. At number 11, the Miami Dolphins, I think, are too high. Their volatility, though, is actually fairly even. 7 is their high for ESPN. 17 is their low. And this is one that I actually sort of agree with, because the Dolphins are a team in my individual power rankings that I'd probably rank like 14 or 15, right? But in terms of their volatility, I feel like they're pretty even. I think they're going to be somewhere between 8 wins and 11 wins. And I don't think they're going to be any worse than 8 and 9 and any better than 11 and 6. So I actually think I agree with this one a lot. At number 10, the Dallas Cowboys with a 3.6 volatility. This could have a lot to do with the popularity of the Cowboys. At number 5, the Yahoo Sports. At number 18, USA Today. I don't think they're going to be as bad as 18. I just think Dak, the infrastructure of the defense, CeeDee Lamb, I think they're too good. Micah Parsons, the studs that they have. Even Mike McCarthy, to a certain degree, has proven consistency with this team. Like, 18, that's too low. And I think that 5, being like a really elite contender and a division winner, is too high. So 10, I think, is too high as well. I'd probably have them at 14, 15, 16. But it's not outrageous. At number 9, the Packers, I think, is a fair ranking. 5 is their high, 11 is their low, and I really like that. I'm actually surprised that the Packers have less volatility than most teams. That's fascinating to me, considering Jordan Love and how young this team is. At number 8, the Houston Texans, I think they're too low, as you guys know, but their high is 4 from Bleacher Report, and their low is 13. I actually kind of wonder if the number 4 is actually me. Honestly, like I wonder if this guy took from me on my power rankings. I'm not sure. But number 4, the Texans. Anyways, I think the Texans are going to be very, very good. I think they're going to have a top 5 offense and a top 10 defense. And I love CJ Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, Bobby Slowick. They've got great coaching. D-line is extremely, extremely upside. Potential is there. Receiving core is phenomenal. Weapons are all over the place. This is an elite team. At 7, I think the Bengals are too low. I think they're going to win their division. They're ranked as a high of 4. And the Bills, the Bengals, and the Texans are all ranked at a high of 4. While the Texans are ranked at a low of 13. That's too low to me. The Bengals at 14 is puzzling. Unless you think Joe Burrow is going to get hurt, having the Bengals at 14 does not really make a lot of sense. They're a top 10 team with Joe Burrow. He is a solidified top 3-4 quarterback in this league. He's in the elite tier. So unless you think Burrow's going to get hurt, 14 doesn't really make sense. The Bills have an interesting one because they have a high of 4 and a low of 10. I think 4 is too high. I think 10 is fair. I'm closer to the low on the Bills than the high on the Bills, but I think I have them 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that range. But I just feel like 4 is kind of like, I don't know. I just don't think they're talented enough to warrant number 4. Obviously, they have Josh Allen. Sean McDermott's a good coach. The O-line's solid. The defense is solid. They've got a top 10 offense, top 10 defense. I love James Cook. But 4 just feels like the Lions, the Ravens, the Niners, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Bengals. These are much more talented teams than Buffalo. There would have to be many breakouts for them to be ranked as number 4 or the 4th best team this year. That being said, the Bills could win the Super Bowl because if things go right for them, I think it's possible. At number 5, the Eagles, I think, are too high. A high of 3, a low of 12. I think their range makes more sense in terms of having more volatility than a team like Buffalo. Closer in line to the Texans. I think the Eagles are too high at 3, too low at 12. I'd have them at 8 or 9 on my power rankings. Maybe 7 on a good day. Detroit at number 4 feels accurate. A range of 3 to 6. So this is the thing with the Lions that I think Lions fans might be a little frustrated with, but are probably also happy about. Like, they're one of the least volatile teams in the league. Other than Carolina in a bad way, the Chiefs and the Niners in a good way, the Lions are the 4th most or least volatile team in the NFL. And that's because a lot of people believe that they're very, very good, but a lot of people also don't quite believe that they're a Super Bowl team. They have the Niners and the Chiefs ahead of them. So that's interesting. But I think the Lions could make the Super Bowl, especially if Ayuk gets traded by the Niners. At number 3, the Ravens, 1.7 volatility, a 2 of a high, a 9 of a low. I think 2 is definitely too high by the ringer. Number 9, I'm closer to number 9. I think I ranked them number 9 in my latest power ranking. So I definitely have the Ravens a lot lower. I have the Ravens lower than the Bills, the Eagles, the Bengals, the Texans, the Packers. I do. Especially, like, without a doubt, I would have the Bengals, the Texans, and the Lions above the Ravens. The Bills, the Eagles, and the Packers are debatable, but I think the Texans, the Bengals, and the Lions are definitely better. And I'm betting on the Bengals to beat them in the division race this year. The 49ers and the Chiefs at number 1 and number 2 makes sense. I'm actually shocked that the Chiefs have a low of 3, though, by Fantasy Pros. Where does I wonder where Fantasy Pros has, or who their top 2 is. That's interesting. But the Chiefs, Bleacher Report number 1. The Niners, number 1 for Warren Sharp, which is interesting. That's definitely telling, I think, because Warren Sharp's one of the, one of the sharper sites on this list. But I think the Niners, in terms of talent, overall build, roster, as long as they keep Ayuk or get some sort of receiver that's similar, they're number 1 or number 2. They're the favorite in the NFC. The Chiefs are more so the favorite because their track record and because Mahomes, Reed, and the core of the team, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, they have more holes on their roster than the Niners do, but they have the higher end of the quarterback. So the Chiefs are 1, 2. I wouldn't even consider them at 3. I could consider them at 2. I could consider them at 1. The Niners, I would consider at 1 or 2. It's 1 or 2 for those two teams. After that, I think 3 is a debate between the Lions, the Bengals, and the Texans. That's how I see it. I think from there, those same teams are competing for 4 and 5. And then at number 6, you're debating the Eagles, the Bills, the Packers, and the Ravens. And then those teams make up the rest of the top 9. And then at 10, I think you're contemplating the Jets, the Rams, the Browns, the Dolphins, the Cowboys. That's probably about it. And then from there, you're contemplating the next tier, right? Which is like the Falcons, which is the Steelers, which is the Jags, which is, to me, the Seahawks, which is the Bucks. So that's how I see these rankings. Interesting. Just interesting stuff to think about and read. And I'm actually going to keep these so I understand what people think. You guys let me know in the comment section below what you think of these power rankings. And let me know if you agree or disagree with your high, with your low, with your volatility. I do think that the coolest thing about this is the volatility and seeing the wide spectrum of opinion on these teams. The least volatile teams being the Niners, the Chiefs, the Lions, the Packers, surprisingly, are thrown in there. The Patriots and the Panthers in a bad way. So people think the Panthers and the Patriots are the worst teams and the Chiefs and the Niners are the best teams. Okay. There it is. Double Mitch for a second. Thanks for watching. Gronk, spike the like button. Subscribe. Peace.